Let's talk a little bit about, let's reflect on the week in a couple of ways, not just about Donald Trump, which we'll come to in a second, but Peter, I want to ask your thoughts, first of all, on what happened in Amsterdam, and then get Ralph's views on it, because I think some people will know a bit about it, some people will know a lot about it. We discussed it yesterday, and I just wonder, seeing what happened there, the real worry is, could those anti-Semitic attacks, could that violence happen here?
I'm a lifelong football supporter. Only this season I've been watching football, not only at home, but in Italy, and it's what I do. It's something that I love.
Your main hobby?
It is, yeah. And I've been there in the dim, dark days of the 70s and the 80s, some improvement in the 90s, but football hooliganism has never completely gone away. This had a very different dynamic to it this week. I don't think that any party is blameless, and it's an unpalatable but very true fact that almost every professional football club in Europe has an element of supporters who wouldn't mind a tear-up. Yeah. Let me put it that way. So, I think, from what I've read and from what I've heard, is that some of the Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters, the Israeli side, did pull down a Palestinian flag at some point. I think that's beyond dispute. Yeah. And they may have had an argument with a taxi driver. However, what we saw thereafter, with a baying mob, clearly fueled by anti-Semitism, looking to cause serious harm to people, was of a very different and more sinister nature. This is anti-Semitism involving itself in football. I would like to see the two separated, because I don't want people to kind of lump them together, almost like I've just done.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, but they are separate.
With a view to saying, this is football's problem.
Yes.
This is not football's problem. This is a new problem which is impinging upon football.
Ralph, your perspective on this?
Well, I think Peter is absolutely right. I would just add one thing, which is that what we have been experiencing for over a year now is that a conflict from the Middle East is now taking place in all major cities all over the West, with the exception, I always have to mention this, of Central and Eastern Europe. So I agree, like, we'll find out over the next couple of days what precisely happened, who provoked whom, and exactly the scenes that took place afterwards. But the matter of the fact is, I just don't want to have these conflicts in our cities. And I think it's just entirely unfathomable that something that is from a very distant part of the world is now basically having a daily impact on how we conduct policies in the West, because it means that it's very hard to have autonomous politics, right, to pursue your national interest if you have conflicts within your country that are not, let's say, genuine to your country. And I think this is really a larger issue that needs to be addressed.
It's interesting as well, because here in the United Kingdom we're hearing as well about the fact that there have been all sorts of protests, pro-Palestinian protests happening. Today there's going to be a Palestinian Solidarity campaign march from King's Cross Station to Sadler's Wells Theatre today to demand, as they put it, the theatre ends its ties to Barclays, the bank, which is bankrolling Israel's genocide. I have major issues with the use of that word in Gaza through its substantial financial ties to arms companies supplying barely worth even reading this out. That is going to be another protest march that is happening today. But we're hearing about this pro-Palestinian mob a plot to swarm 5 UK cities in a coordinated Armistice Day protest, as these are linked to Just Stop Oil as well. Peter, your perspective on this?
I've said it publicly many times. Just Stop Oil have proven again and again and again that they are the enemy of the people.
They're a cult. They are a cult.
Yeah, they started with the motorist, gluing themselves to roads, slow walking, all that kind of stuff. They then branched out to seriously disrupt sporting events, a World Snooker Championships, a test match at Lord's, other sporting events. They then went on to the arts and the culture by trying to destroy priceless works of art, and then, of course, really to cement their position as hating the common person, they then tried to stop people getting on their flights to enjoy their hard-earned family holidays this summer. They are unequivocally the enemy of the people. And now, if they seek to disrupt the most solemn day in the calendar, when we honour those who fell in order to give us the freedoms that we enjoy today, then the irony shouldn't be lost upon anybody, and I think they will find that they will be clamped down upon extremely firmly.
Ralph, it's interesting because we have, of course, Remembrance Sunday coming tomorrow, full coverage, I should say, here on Talk. Of course, we'll be observing it. We've got a great guy, Daniel Britton, who's going to talk us through the whole thing. Do you know Daniel, Peter? Have you met Daniel? He's
I don't
great
think
guy.
I have.
Oh, he's so good. It's sort of, he just knows everything about all the history, the politics, all the constitutional stuff. I really want him to give me a tour of Parliament at some stage because he'll tell me all sorts of things I don't know. But anyway, we're of course marking Remembrance Sunday tomorrow, Armistice Day on Monday, and there are real worries, Ralph, that here in the UK that this is going to be disrupted in some way.
Well, I think Peter is too polite. I mean, I'm proudly wearing this poppy, and I kind of have a dog in this fight because, as you can probably tell from my accent, my people lost 2 world wars against you. So if I would resist wearing a poppy, that might be understandable. But the difference is, as you pointed out, there are people in the United Kingdom who were welcomed with open arms, who got access, to everything Britain has to offer. It's a privilege. I say this every time. It's a privilege to be here, and they take advantage of those rights and privileges they got to demonstrate, to protest against the very country that offered them so much. And the difference is that even though my side lost 2 wars, I understand that at the end of the day, as hard as that might sound, the United Kingdom, Austria, Germany, we are part of the same civilization. We had some quarrels, particularly with German speakers, kind of weird, quite far away ones from our actual civilizational background, but the British after World War II played a significant role in bringing us back in. But there are people in this country who are not and who don't want to be part of that civilization. I think at some point we have to speak openly about this, because otherwise I cannot explain why you would, as Peter correctly said, why would you protest against the ultimate sacrifice made by people that allows them to live the kind of lives they live now in Britain that they would find nowhere else? I mean, that's the reason why they came to Britain, because if it's so horrible here, why would you come to this country? Because it's better than probably 99% of every other place in the world.
There are people who would say, well, actually the freedom that people fought for in those world wars is the freedom to protest, is the freedom to have this free speech, the freedom to have these kind of protests. What would you say to that, Ralph?
Well, that is true, but at some point when it becomes suicidal, we have to talk about it. I always say I'm not for banning people from having those protests and doing it, but I don't also think that we should pay them some kind of, special respect. This is what bothers me, and this is the kind of situation we find ourselves in. And I'm going to make a broader argument in a minute, but I'll let go Peter first.
On Remembrance Sunday and Armistice Day, so Sunday and Monday, we do not protest, we celebrate the sacrifices, we commemorate the sacrifices, and above all, we respect the sacrifices that millions of people made so that we can sit in the studio and speak freely, so that we can walk down the road, so that we can have everything that we enjoy as part of a flagship democracy. Anybody who steps out of line tomorrow at the Cenotaph, goodness gracious me, you can't understand the scale of the policing and the military operation that is in place for tomorrow. Anybody that dares to disrupt that, believe you me, will be making the single biggest mistake of their life. And anybody who seeks to upset events on Monday, again, will be foolish beyond compare.
We know that Metropolitan Police counter-terror officers will be supported by Special Forces soldiers. There'll be undercover SAS soldiers mingling with the public, a separate team from the Special Boat Service, SBS, patrolling the Thames. One source said, I've been told to be there for 8 a.m. and bring all the ID and an e-ticket. It could actually be hard for some veterans in their 80s who struggle with computers. I wonder what your perspective is.
The 8 a.m. is for people who will be lining the route for the Cenotaph, the veterans that will be paying their respects.
It's a long time to wait, though, isn't it?
The whole operation is undergoing now, okay? And the operation spreads from the sewers to the skies above. It's that huge and it's on that kind of scale. Think coronation, think royal funerals and the such like. That's the extent of the operation. No one is going to disrupt that tomorrow.
Let's just bring in Peter from Essex. He's given us a ring on 0344 499 1000. Peter, you're very welcome to the programme. You're on not just with me, but with Ralph Schoellhammer and with Peter Bleksley as well. What point would you like to make today?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
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 I'm 86 years old, and I cannot believe the state this country has gone down to. Why on earth did we let all these people who hate our guts, they hate our way of life, they hate everything about us, they have no respect for women? Why on earth did we let all these people into the country to ruin our way of life? It may not be the best way of life, but it is our way of life. And I cannot understand how we allowed this to happen.
Okay.
It's an absolute disgrace and a tragedy. And as far as I'm concerned, I would do a Trump. I would chuck them all out because they're no good to this country and they're no good to us at all.
Hold that thought, Peter. Let's put that to both Peter and Ralph. Let's start with Peter.
I agree with an enormous amount of what that caller says. But this is my perspective from somebody born towards the end of 1959, okay, so raised in the 60s and 70s, and then my work in life thereafter. My life has been hugely enhanced by people who have migrated into the UK. They are friends of mine. They are married to family members. They are the people that will serve me in the curry house, the people that run the Italian restaurants, the people that work in so many walks of life and have enhanced Britain in the last 50 years or so. What I cannot tolerate and what I chime completely with this caller over is the uncontrolled, unfettered, illegal migration of people into this country who we simply do not know who they are, where they've come from, what their intentions are, how on earth they're going to contribute to this country, and quite frankly, it's appalling. And as a footnote, before I let Ralph speak, another 1,300 entered the UK through small boats this week alone.
Yeah, and that's the point that Peter makes so well, in that there is immigration that I personally welcome. If there's room, if there are people who should be here, there's legal immigration, which is, I mean, for example, were the London School of Economics to welcome Ralph Schoellhammer as an academic. I'm not sure you'd fit in particularly well there, but were they to, for example, say, come over here, teach our students, I'd be very happy with that, because that would make sense. But there is bad immigration as well. There is illegal immigration. There are immigrants who we don't want and don't enhance our way of life, Ralph.
Well, I completely agree with what the caller was saying, and I think maybe I have a slightly other way to describe what he was saying, and I hope that he will agree. Everybody in Britain understands that as time passes on, things are changing, the culture is changing, but it is supposed to change in an evolutionary way. Think about the thing, Peter, you have children, and I think, Peter, you have children as well.
I don't, but...
Okay, well, then for those of listeners who have children, you know that like your child is different at the age of 20 than it was at the age of 5, and it's going to be different at the age of 30 than it was at the age of 20. But it is still distinctively your child. And this is, I think, also how we have to look at migration. Of course, things will change, but the British people wants that the United Kingdom kind of keeps its distinct British character, just as your child has a character you hope it will carry on. What the left wants, and I'm sorry, but we have to name names here, right? They want to use migration to fundamentally transform the nature and character of the British people, of Brittanness, if you want. And most people, and I support those people, don't want that. In a sense, and I'm willing to go into this area. What you see happening with mass migration on the macro level is what you see happening very often with the transgender issue on the micro level. Like, these are all attacks on the nature, on the character of our culture, of our civilization as it has evolved over time. But this is the thing, people understand that things change, but they wanted to keep its distinctive British character. And we can have an idea of what that character is, by the way. We can talk about this later. And I think they are right? This is the point. When we talk illegal immigration, legal migration, migration is okay as long as it doesn't threaten your national character. And we have reached this point within the West, not just in the UK, where migration is becoming a threat to your character. It's like, last point, really quick, it's like your food intake. Right? You go to the doctor and you say, I have an upset stomach, what is it? And the doctor will say, well, what did you eat? And if your answer is just, I ate food, the doctor will not be able to tell you what's going on. You have to tell the doctor, what kind of food did you eat? And the same with migration. You say, okay, what kind of migration did we have over the last 30 years? And you will find out that it's just, to a very limited extent, wannabe British patriots like myself from Austria, but to a significant larger extent, it's wannabe Islamists from the Middle East. And I think this is just a reality we have to face.
Peter and Essex, just briefly, if you want to respond to what Ralph and Peter Bleksley have been saying.
As Ralph says, we will have change, but it needs to be at our pace and not their pace. And as Peter says, there are lots of great immigrants in this country, but the ones we don't know are the ones that are the problem. And this country is being taken over by them. Our lives are being changed unevocably. This will go on, and eventually, I think we're going to have trouble on the streets. I honestly do.
Well, we have already in some respects. I know what you mean. I hope not too.
I really hope not.
Yeah.
But there's going to come a point when the British people are going to stand up and say enough is enough. We're going to have to fight back.
Okay.
I hope I don't live to see this day, but there you go.